So, I've been shooting 9mm for a while, and I finally found my forever handgun. I thought it was my CZP-09. I wanted to be cool, I wanted to be an outside the box thinker that really loves double single action autoloaders. But about half a year ago, I bought another gun, and I love my Smith & Wesson, the full size 2.0 in FDE. The grip is very grippy, love the way it looks. I finally have a red dot now, and now that I've started using it, I don't want to go back. Currently, the gun in my bedside safe is a CZP-09. It is the lowest recoiling handgun I have, but it's iron sights only. Eventually, I'm going to send it off to get the slide milled for an optic, but as soon as I get good enough shooting with the red dot, the M&P is going to get upgraded to my bedside gun, and the CZ is going to get demoted to the safe. Now, like most people, I shoot the cheapest 9mm ammo I can get, and recently I bought some Bellum 9mm 124 grain ammo. It often goes on pretty good sale in bulk a few times a year, and it comes in these little Tupperware boxes that I figure I can always repurpose into ammo boxes for my reloads down the line when I do eventually start reloading 9mm. I don't currently reload 9mm, but after chronographing the Bellum ammo, I feel like I need to start reloading 9mm if I'm going to get serious about improving my shooting. I do like the Bellum ammo, and I probably will end up buying a 1,000 count box of it next time I see it go on a good sale. Every round has the sealant on it, the boxes seem fairly watertight, or at least, would hold up really well to long-term storage. But when I chronographed this, I got an average of 1,042 feet per second out of a 5-inch barrel. So that's a little anemic. It makes it very soft shooting, it's not very smoky. I think it would be great for target shooting or just having a little bit of fun, but I'm not really sure if it's a good analog for practicing with defensive ammo. 124 grain defensive ammo is usually rated around 1150 feet per second out of a 4-inch barrel and plus P around 1200 feet per second. Now, I don't want to just run a crapload of plus P ammo, but if I'm going to get good at shooting full power defensive ammo, I really need to be practicing with some hotter range ammo and also some plus P loads. But defensive ammo is comically expensive, and I don't want to break the bank buying a bunch of hollow points. So here's what I want to do. I want to develop a 9mm load at the upper end of 9mm regular pressure. Now, I've never loaded 9mm before, so for now we're going to stick at regular pressure loading. I can always bump up to plus P down the line once I have more experience reloading semi-auto pistol cartridges. I ended up choosing 124 grain Berry's plated bullets for a few reasons. Since I haven't loaded 9mm before, I want to stick with published loads, and Berry's bullets is listed for many different powders on the Hodgdon Reloading Data Center. They are plated, so I can't push them too hard, but they have a max velocity of 1250 feet per second, which is kind of on the upper end of plus P loading anyway, so I don't think I have to worry about that. I have no real reason behind choosing 124 grain bullets as my defensive round weight. The only reason I ended up going with these is because they had a good deal going on for Berry's bullets at the time, and for some reason the 124 grain bullets were cheaper than the 115 grain bullets, and obviously significantly cheaper than the 147 grain bullets. I also think 124 grains is a good weight for defensive rounds, as the 147 grains may struggle a little bit with shorter barrels, or give quite a bit of recoil in the subcompact guns like the SIG 365, which I'm going to be more likely to carry than a full-size gun. Let's take a look at the load data. I don't have a huge variety of pistol powders, but I do have a bunch of Accurate Number 7. And looking at the load data for Accurate Number 7, it seems like it's going to be one of our better powders. It looks like CFE pistol is going to be another good option, but since this is my first time loading and we have exact load data with Accurate Number 7, we're going to stick with that for now. So the Hodgdon Reloading Data Center has a loading range of 6.5 to 7.6 grains. I'm going to load up a ladder going in 0.3 grain increments starting at 6.7 grains and going up to 7.6 grains. And we'll see where that gets us velocity wise. They say they got 1120 feet per second out of a 4-inch barrel, so I should get a bit more of that out of the 5-inch barrel. Now, of course, we want to do our due diligence and check multiple sources. Looking at the Nosler load data, they have a range of 6.9 to 7.9, and Hornady also lists up to 7.9 grains, so we have a little bit of buffer on the top end of our range. The Spear data does confuse me a bit though, as they have a starting charge of 8 grains and goes all the way up to 9 grains for their 9mm data online. A majority of the data is closer to the range that I'm going to be using. I'm wondering if maybe that is a typo, but maybe my rounds will end up being super weak. We'll see. Now for brass, I have a bunch of mixed once-fired brass. I think that would be fine for plinking ammo, but for something like this where I'm trying to dial in a specific speed, I kind of want to stick with a single head stamp for now. I'm going to clean and sort my once-fired brass down the road since it's pretty much just from 3 to 4 different manufacturers. But for now, I'm going to be lazy. I grabbed one bag of Starline 9mm brass. One nice thing about them is they're fully encapsulated in copper, so less lead in the air when shooting, and that's good. It's freezing out right now, and I'm going to be shooting in an indoor range for the next few months. Now for dies, we're going to stick with our cheap Lee dies. I actually bought this several years ago when I first started getting into reloading, figuring I would eventually get around to 9mm. I see I apparently went for the Deluxe 4 die set, which is nice, because I had some issues crimping my first 45 ACP reloads. If this goes well, I'll probably end up getting a factory crimp die for 45 ACP down the road. Since this is new brass, we probably don't need to resize, but we're going to do it anyway since it's not going to hurt anything. No case lube required here because these dudes have the carbide sizing rings. I may as well measure some of these. The maximum case length is supposed to be 0.754, and the trim length is 0.749 per Hornady or 0.744 per Mr. Spear. We'll see what these are end up running at. 0.748, 0.749, 0.749, 0.751. So these are all pretty close to trim length. My experience with Starline has pretty much been that they usually run pretty close to trim length when you get them. Grab our resizing die. Screw it in until it makes good contact with the shell holder. Solid contact. And again, like with my 45 ACP, I'm going to make 3 dummy rounds just to check for cycling and to do a plunk test. Essentially no resistance on these. Alright, so we're all resized. Next comes case expansion. Now, it seemed to work well using a nickel on the shell plate for the 45 ACP, but this is a different set of dies, so I'll see what the directions say. Screw in the die until it touches the shell holder, then back out 1 full turn for Magnum cases, which doesn't exist for this. Back out an additional 1 3/4 turns. Flare enough so it easily accepts a bullet. Well, we'll see what this gets us. And 1 full turn. Half. Full turn. And see what that gets us for a flare. That made quite a bit of noise. Seems like it's flared at least a tiny amount. Could probably actually go a little less on the flare, but we'll be using the factory crimp die to clean that out. So, well, let's keep going. That's a really noticeable flare. I'm actually going to see if I can back that off 1/6 of a turn and see what that gets us. Still goes in really easily. Okay. Let's try backing it off at 1/6 more turn, see what that gets us. This is still probably a little bit too much of a flare. Still feel a pretty significant amount of flare. Although, this one's not going in as easy, but it still goes in. So I think that might be the right amount of flare because it's going in, but not nearly as easy as it does with this one. Let's try my first real round and see what that gets me. Again, definitely flared a little bit. And holds a bullet, but really doesn't go in there as deeply as these other test rounds. So I think that's got it. Let's go and do the rest. All right, got them all expanded. Double check. Last one I did. Uh-oh, wait a minute. Okay, now it goes in. Just, I could probably have expanded these, instead of going back 2/6, I probably should have just gone back 1/6 and went with it. But these, I believe, will all still accept a bullet. Yeah, I just need to be a little bit more careful about how I put it in just to make sure it's, they're on there straight. But again, we have the factory crimp die, which will iron out any imperfections anyways. All right, so next comes bullet seating. I'm going to start off with the dummy rounds. And let's see what the manual says about bullet seating. Bullet seating die. Raise the ram to the top of the stroke, screw in the seating die until it touches, and back out 3 full turns. All right, and then it talks about Magnum cases, so this is just a generic instructions. Okay. Back out 3 full turns. 3. Lock it down. Curious to see if this is going to automatically crimp one of our cases, so let's try putting one in there. Didn't feel anything. And bullet goes in easily. Okay. So it's not crimping anything. I have a micrometer seating stem, so I'm going to go ahead and install that. So, first bullet. Don't feel anything. Pushing the bullet in a little bit. And as far as, I don't know what overall length we're going for. I'll be right back. All right, so we're looking for a overall length of 1.160. And I should also mention, as far as velocity that we're looking for, if normal defensive ammo out of a 4-inch barrel is 1150 feet per second, I guess I'm probably looking for a little under 1200 feet per second out of the 5-inch barrel. 1.201, so we'll go down another 40. And there's 40. Let's see what that gets us. .153, so a little short. Back it off. 10, and I'll see where that gets me for the next one. Trying to be consistent with the lever there. 1.170, okay, so 1.160, okay, so that's right on the dot. 1.157, so pretty dang close. So now we'll try the plunk test. Oh, and unfortunately, this is not clean. Yeah, this is pretty dirty. Oh, I haven't crimped them yet. Duh. Ah, this is going to be a mess. All right. So for crimping, screw until it just touches the shell holder. Back out the adjustment screw. Half turn for a light crimp. So we'll try half turn for the first one. Okay, these are all, I was just checking to see if the bolts were in there straight. Raise it up. And screw it in until we feel contact. Okay, there's solid contact right there. 1/2 turn. I've got to check measurements, but that feels like that's gotten rid of the crimp. 1.378, 1.376, 1.376 at the edge, at the bottom of the bullet, 1.378 at the very edge. .376, so it's bringing it in until right at the edge there. And let's just see if we see any sort of marking. No, there's a little shiny spot. Just for giggles, let's see what a full heavy crimp does. Ooh, that felt bad. Whew, that's definitely a tight seal on the bullet. I'm going to mark this one just so I know that this one might be the one that would fail the plunk test. Okay, and then also grab some factory ammo. All right, so factory ammo makes a nice noise. Lined up right at the very top edge, maybe just barely proud of it. And now for our maximum crimp round. That is just barely proud of the rim. Seems to actually be exactly the same as the factory ammo. And as far as sound, sounds the exact same. And before I forget, gonna wipe off that factory round and put it back in the case and get it the hell off my bench. All right, so for the lightly crimped ones, the exact same spot. After trying both light crimp and heavy crimp, I think what I'm going to do for the crimp on the actual rounds is going to be just over a half crimp or just over a half rotation. I think that will get me right where I want to be. The ones that are just a light crimp, I can just barely see the slightest amount of shine on the case. Maybe a half crimp is actually right where I want to be because I do see just a little shine on there. It's definitely crimped in. I could maybe go just over half a crimp. But the full crimp one is definitely not looking great. I kind of want to pull this bullet, actually. I think I'm going to. All right, so I pulled the bullets, and these did cycle just fine out of the M&P. So the two with the light crimp, I see just a tiny mark on the bullet where it was crimped to. So that seems actually pretty good to me. So a half turn on the crimp is just fine, I think. And then for the full crimp, there is a very deep indentation, although I don't know if it actually broke through to the lead. It might have just broke through right there. Obviously, full crimp is definitely too much, but it still passed the plunk test, so it probably would have shot. It just maybe would have let it out the barrel a little bit. So anywhere between a half crimp and a full crimp is probably fine. I think I'll go a half crimp and maybe just a tiny bit more. So let's get the rest of these loaded up. Also found a 405 grain bullet in my impact bullet puller. And also covered my bench with reloader number 7, or at least I think that's what it is. I think I can reuse these 2 bullets actually. Don't think I want to reuse this bullet. I put the full crimp on, so that's going to go on the wall of shame with the rest of the mistakes. All right. So all the cases are charged with the bullet on top. I will say for expanding, I think 1 full turn was too much expansion, but going back 2/6 of a turn was too little expansion. Some of these were very difficult to get to line up properly. We'll see if I have any issues with bullet seating. 5, 10, 15, 16, 17. 1.160. 1.161. 1.162. 1.161. All right, so we're going to call that a good amount. We're just 0.001 over. 1.161. All right, now to crimping. Screw it down until it touches the shell holder. Screw it down until it touches. It's good. Half, maybe a tiny bit more. And we forgot to measure. So at the base of the bullet, 0.376. So on the uncrimped one, 0.378. It's definitely getting rid of the expansion. And there's just a little shiny spot. Let me just make sure that the one I haven't done the crimp on, this one has not been crimped. The edge of the casing looks completely normal to me. And now there's definitely a little shiny spot on the edge. So it's definitely crimping it a little bit. And we pulled those bullets before, and the one that was only a half turn did give us a tiny bit of indentation in the bullet, so we are for sure crimping these with a half crimp. And I'm not sure if I said it before, but these are Winchester small pistol primers that I used in this. Checking just to make sure that there's a shiny spot in every few of them. All right, got them all loaded up. Let's head to the range. And we're back. So this one all right. I think I need to bump up my final charge by just a smidge, but otherwise still decent range ammo. So I started off with a load of 6.7 grains and got an average velocity of 1,061 feet per second with a standard deviation of 14, which gives me 310 foot-pounds of energy. So this charge gives me right around where the Bellum ammo was, getting me out of my full-size Smith & Wesson. I'll put up the rest here. For my top charge of 7.6 grains, that got me a 1,173 feet per second with a standard deviation of 13. Felt pretty good, pretty consistent with a velocity spread of 34 feet per second, and this gives me 379 foot-pounds of energy. Now I think I need to snag some regular and plus P defensive ammo for comparison, but the Hornady manual lists up to 7.9 grains for the max charge. I think I can bump up my max charge by another 0.2 grains to get up to 7.8. I think that will get me right around or just under 1,200 feet per second, which is kind of what I'm looking for out of the 5-inch barrel. Now, this isn't the same bullet as the Hornady Full Metal Jacket, so these could end up being a little overpressure, but I don't think it would be by too much. If I'm worried about plus P pressures, I think I can probably stick with the 7.6 grain, the top charge, because it was around 1,170 feet per second. I don't think another 30 feet per second is going to cause a huge jump in recoil. So then for training, I would use the 7.6 grains of accurate number 7, and then for plinking, I think 7 to 7.3 grains would be just fine. That got me just a little over 1,100 feet per second, and the 0.5 milliliter Lee scoop gives me around 7.2, 7.3 grains, so I think if I can get my scoop technique down, I can just go full caveman and not even bother weighing out these charges. A couple things I want to do down the road. The next powder I want to try is CFE Pistol. That seems like another high velocity powder, and I can also try using accurate number 7 at 7.8 grains just to see what that gets me. Once I have the data on these two powders, I want to start making up some defensive ammo. I have 2 different bullets. For the first trial, I want to stick with published data, so I got some Sierra 124 grain V-Crown bullets. From what I've seen, these work pretty well. Then, for some more outside the box defensive rounds, I have the 124 grain RMR Nuke bullets, which is the Rocky Mountain Reloading defensive or hollow points. But I want to do some more tests before I feel okay using a bullet that doesn't have published load data. But based on the RMR website, it looks like these Nuke hollow points would function really well. Anyway, I'm pumped with how things went, and I want to load up some more soon. Thanks for watching.